Hey everyone, welcome to Redlands Rundown, the official podcast of Redlands Community College, where we're dedicated to help you finding success at college, in your career, and with everything in between. I'm Macey Scotton, and with me again I have
Sydney Dacus.
Awesome, and we're really excited to be here with you today. We're talking about back to school and getting into the swing of things, and we've got some fun tips and tricks to share with you, some of our experiences, and then we also have a fun section where we asked some Redlands students and even a few Redlands graduates some questions and got their feedback to share with you. So really excited about the topics that we have to cover today. So we'll just jump right into it. The first segment that we have is really just going over universal advice for our students and our listeners to try to incorporate into their day-to-day schedules. So one of the first things I want to talk about is organizing our schedule and managing our time effectively. Looking back, well, you're currently a student too. So thinking about managing your time and your schedule, what are some tips and tricks that you have to share with our students and our listeners?
Oh my goodness. Being back in school and working a full-time job has been a lot. I am so excited to be done in December. I will get my master's. I will never go back. People are so brave. I think really being able to have like 2 dedicated notebooks has helped me a lot.
Yeah.
And I know that seems like, oh my gosh, okay. Like you have 2 full notebooks that you write all these different things in. But sometimes if I'm writing all of like, I have to get this done at work today, but I also have to go home and I have to write this paper tonight, it gets overwhelming to me versus if I have my work notebook on my desk during the day of this is the task I need to accomplish. And then I have my homework notebook or whatever, my school notebook at home or on my desk, but in a separate place. I can kind of put it away because I get very overwhelmed looking at this all has to be done by midnight tonight. And so I think putting it into like chunks almost has been very helpful to me. And I am not as organized as most people probably. I don't do like the highlighters. I don't do color coding. I have tried. And I'm just someone that bare minimum, I have to write down what I'm going to do. And I have to write down, this is when this is due by. This is when I have a test. This is when this big project at work is due. And so my biggest tip has been like the 2 notebooks.
Okay.
And knowing like this is my homework notebook. This is my work notebook.
Yeah.
These are when these things get handled.
I think that's really helpful. And we have a lot of students that do work full-time while they're doing their associate's degrees with us. So I think that's really helpful. I am the highlighter person.
You are. And I love that about you. I wish I was.
I have my way to stay organized. I have a planner, and it's not week by week. It's a month overview where I write down meetings and assignments and deadlines that I have coming up, or if I have a show that I'm judging, or if we have a contest for the judging team, and I highlight them in different colors. And so that is how I stay organized. Big picture, but I do think that in terms of, keeping things separate, like you said, I'm the same way. I get very overwhelmed if I see everything I have to do. It really makes it hard for me to finish the one task that I'm focusing on. So I think that that's great of you to share with students of keeping things separate, especially for our students. And maybe you're not even working full time. Maybe you're on, our academic team and you're working on a big project that you have. And so instead of thinking about, hey, I've got to prepare for this upcoming competition and that's looming in your mind, setting that aside and focusing on, okay, I need to focus on this assignment that I've got due this Friday.
Right.
And putting that putting that out of your mind for a little bit.
Because I think that's the other thing is prioritizing. Like if you know, okay, I have to finish this PowerPoint presentation or whatever for work by Thursday, but this assignment can be done by Friday. Ideally, you work earlier in the week and you've been working on it. I'm not good at that. Unfortunately, again, I'm not the most organized person. But if I know the deadlines, and the other thing that has helped me is I will put things on my phone as well. And so I have I put them on my Outlook calendar on my work or computer. I put them on my phone on my personal calendar. I put them in the notebooks. I have so many different reminders. I put separate reminders on my phone just because I want to make sure I get the things done that I need to get done. And I think at times, probably when I was younger, I felt like I don't need to do all that. Like I can remember, I can figure out what I need to do. And older and wiser, I guess. The older I get, the more I'm like, no, it's not a shameful thing that I have to have 75 reminders.
Yep.
It just means I'm going to get my stuff done.
Yeah, I agree. I used to set alarms at like 6:00 at night. That was like, hey, I need to do this.
Right. Sometimes it's literally like wash your dishes, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like I have to have
Whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
Another question I have for you.
Yeah.
How do you get in the right mindset? And that might be getting in the right mindset to sit down and work for an evening, or getting in the right mindset as we are entering a new semester and, setting goals for yourself throughout the semester. What are some things that maybe you think you try to do?
I think the first thing I do is I have to take a deep breath and think, what is big picture, and what are my big goals, what are my small goals? And I think for me it goes back to taking things into chunks. What's achievable right now, what's attainable right now, what is a long-term goal? And I think for all of us in college, in our work and everything, we have so many different goals in so many different areas. So what are my personal goals, but what are my work goals and what are my school goals?
Yeah.
And figuring out like those top 3 things of all those areas and focusing on, okay, I really want to pull a 4.0 GPA this semester.
Yeah.
And then personally, okay, I really want to save this amount of money. Or I really want to buy a car this year. And then, work, maybe it's I really want to get a promotion, or I really want to accomplish this big project that I've been thinking of. And so I think it's giving yourself those baseline of big picture, this is what I want to do. And then small pictures, how do I get there though?
Yeah.
And so when you're thinking, okay, well, personally, I want to save up this much money to buy a car, I put back this much money every month or every week, whatever it might be. And then you think work-wise, how do I get a promotion? I do better at my job. And like, how do I make that into chunks? And then it's, how do I get a 4.0? And it's, okay, well, every night on Tuesdays, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to study for this topic, if this is the topic I'm really struggling in or whatever it might be. And so for me, it has been a lot of figuring out, yes, I have these goals, and that's overwhelming to me. So how do I break it down into bite-sized chunks and take a piece of them at a time and figure it out? My dad has this quote that he always says, how do you eat an elephant? Which is so silly. Well, one bite at a time.
Yeah.
And he tells us all the time, and he tells it to me all the time, because I am someone that does get so overwhelmed of, I have so many different things that not only do I need to do, but that I hope to do.
Yeah.
And he'll always say, how do you eat an elephant, Sydney? How do you eat an elephant? Which at times I'm like, shut up, shut up. But I know at the end of the day, he's right. You do it one bite at a time. And so that's what I always recommend to people is take it slow.
Yeah.
Figure out, okay, this is my big goal, but what are my steps?
For sure.
What about you? You're like one of the most organized people, I feel like.
I will be honest, I struggle sometimes with anxiety and really feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I'm actually reading a book right now. It's by Jenny Allen. And I'm about halfway through. And she really talks a lot about taking control of your thoughts. And I don't know if our listeners are victims to this or you are, but I spiral.
Oh, yeah, me
out
too.
of control.
Yeah,
and with negative thoughts. And so she has really talked a lot in this book about taking control of your thoughts and interrupting that spiral. And something I was reading actually last night at home was, instead of having this thought of, I am, not good enough, and, I'm not smart enough, and I'm failing on my classes. Instead challenge that and kind of redirect that. And it will really redirect your actions by saying, I'm frustrated with my class grades right now, so I am going to make it a priority to study more in the future. And just instead of really allowing yourself to wallow in that negative self-talk, just shifting yourself and saying, you know what, I am capable of this, even though I maybe didn't reach my goal this time. This is what I can do to adjust. And really changing your self-talk will influence your behaviors. And really make a big impact on you. So I'm working on putting that into practice.
For sure.
But it was something that really hit me last night when I was reading that. And I just was, as we were talking about this, I was thinking, okay, I feel like students can relate to this kind of spiraling out of control. And you can really take control of your thoughts, and it will impact things in your life at school, your personal life, and those kinds of things.
And I think that's so important, because I remember being in college and thinking, everyone has it so together, and I do not. And I think that now to a degree. I think as an adult, I look around and I think everyone has it so together and I do not. And then, you sit down and talk with your friends, or you sit down and talk with a coworker, and you talk to someone, a student, and you realize we're all just figuring it out. And we all struggle with our different things. And much like you, I also struggle with that overwhelming anxiety at times and a lot of the time it's silly stuff. It's stuff that when I think about it, it's like, okay, that didn't need me to react that way. And so what you said about redirecting and figuring out what can I do about it, that's great. And I think that'll be really helpful.
Yeah, I hope so. So the next thing I want to talk about is study tips. And I want to share your favorite study tips and some different practices that our students can use. And so I have a few different examples, but
Wonderful.
Do you have a specific method that works best for you?
I'm a terrible person at studying. I'm awful at studying.
Yeah. Especially if you're a procrastinator.
Yes.
And this is one of the methods that I
Yes.
do have.
Yes.
So it does work for
I
some
am listening.
I don't want to skim over. So the first one I have is passive learning. That's just reading over your material. And a lot of times you're doing that like the night before your test.
Yes.
And so that's also referred to as cramming. So you're just reading over the material, hoping that you remember it. It's not always the most effective. So some of the other methods that I have, one of them is active recall. And so part of that is, yes, reading over your material, but then after you study the material for a certain amount of time, you might close your book and then challenge yourself to answer a question about that material or recall the things that you just read about. Another thing is using flashcards. But that was something that I did a lot, and using like Quizlet, if you don't want to write flashcards and make them yourselves. That was really helpful to me to study for tests and quizzes and those kinds of things. Another method that you can use that I think talking with some students, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but the Pomodoro method, and I might not be saying that right.
Sounds right to me.
But it's essentially where you take a big task or project, and it can even be just a normal assignment or an upcoming test, and breaking that down into segments. So you might set a timer for 25, 30 minutes, and you really have this focused amount of time where you're working on the project or you're studying, and then you follow that with a 5-minute break. And when I was doing my research on this, they shared that it's very important that when you take that 5-minute break, that you don't stay in the same spot. They really challenge you to get up, to move around, stretch, go for a walk, use the bathroom, before you restart that cycle of focused studying for 25, 30 minutes, limiting your distractions while you're doing that, putting your phone on Do Not Disturb, shutting off the TV probably, maybe having some quiet music going.
Some
And
Beethoven.
yes, and making the best study environment that you can, and then taking that break and doing that cycle, 3 or 4 times. I saw a lot of people share that has been very, very successful for them.
I think looking back, and even now, one of the things, but especially when I was in classes in person, was taking notes. That was a big thing for me. I am someone, I need to read the material, and I can hear it, but I do better if I hear it and write it down and reread it.
Yeah.
And then also sharing that material with other people it's been a big one for me. And I think I don't always look at that as studying, but it's been a way that I have learned the most material and knowledge, I feel like. The other day I was telling my dad about a paper I had just written, and I was explaining this concept to him. And before I knew it, he had pulled out a paper from his college days that he had written in 1992 over this same exact concept. And so that was a really cool moment for us, because it was one of those things where it was like these skills are transferable, and you and I are having this conversation about something that I just learned, and I wasn't even realizing that I was really intaking it until I was having this outward conversation with you explaining it.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It was really cool. I'm not like a master of studying. There was a time that I slept on my book one night for osmosis. So but
So don't knock it till you try it.
Yeah, but those have been things that, looking back, I think those are ways that I did learn knowledge without it feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to sit down and study for however long, because it can be an overwhelming task. I think at times we think I have better things to do than to study, and a lot of the time you don't, because you want to do good on your test. But it does feel that way at times for sure. So those are like some passive ways, I guess, that I have kind of taken in that knowledge.
And then I want to expand on that a little bit further, because sometimes you can study for a long time and still really struggle to grasp the concept, and that's okay. And I think that's an opportunity for us to talk a little bit about the resources that we have on campus, especially for our ACE Center, our Academic Center for Enhancement.
Yes.
It's actually right down the hall from where we're filming right now in the multimedia building. I believe the room's 215, but it's upstairs. So if you students are on campus, that's open from 8 to 5, Monday through Thursday, 8 to 4 on Fridays. And you are welcome to stop in and ask. There's other students and peers in there that are there to help you with whatever class that you might need assistance with. And so I know when I was a student here, I took advantage of tutoring for our my biology and chemistry classes. I needed that extra assistance and support in my science classes, and it really made a big difference, kind of pairing studying on my own, with getting together with my friends and my peers and my classmates to study. And so I'd really encourage our students that are on campus to take advantage of our ACE tutoring center.
Absolutely.
And then also right outside of here, we have really nice study rooms in our library that our students can reserve. And they're set up where you can come in here and study by yourself if you need to get away from your dorm, or if you want to come up with a group of friends. We have a great room that's set up with a whiteboard and a TV you can plug your laptop into. And it's nice sometimes to have a dedicated space that's not your apartment or your dorm, where you can come and really focus and limit some of those distractions.
Yeah, I will say for me, like even just sitting at my desk versus sitting on my couch makes a really big difference for me. And then I would also like to add on to that and say talking with your professor, because maybe you feel like, I don't want my friends to know that I'm struggling, or maybe you are commuting and you don't necessarily have that many friends that you've made. I was in a very similar situation as to where I didn't necessarily have this group of people that I was just spending time with, that I felt like I can make a study group out of this. But I did have professors that if I felt like I was really struggling to understand the content, I would go to them and say, what can I do? And this is not making sense to me, and I want to do good. And I think that's something that I've learned teaching classes is all I want is for my students to succeed at the end of the day. And I will do almost anything to make sure that they do. And that across the boards here, I feel is very similar. I think most of our professors here want their students to do good. And if you come to us and say, I'm really struggling, we're going to do what we can.
Yeah, we're here to support you. We want you to do well. And honestly, if you seek us out, I seek out professors. I mean, I say us because I teach a few ag classes, but if you seek us out and you are proactive in looking for help, if you're struggling with something, I promise you're going to really, really get a good response rather than waiting till the end of the semester. And, if you have a tanked grade and you come in a couple weeks before the end of the semester, it might be harder to get that opportunity to bump your grade back up. So don't put it off. Seek out help, talk to your professors. I promise they're going to be very happy to help you. So I want to talk a little bit about living on campus versus living off campus, and tips for making the most of both of those things. And so first I wanted to talk about dorm life and campus life. And I know you and I both have different perspectives because I did live in the dorms and on campus, and you were a commuter.
Right.
And so I want to talk first about our on-campus students.
Okay.
And so a few things that I want to talk about first is setting up a functional and comfortable dorm room and apartment and tricks to do that. The first thing I wanted to talk about was must-have items for feeling your space, making your space feel like home and making it comfortable. On the topic of comfortable, I remember when I moved in here in the fall and when I was a freshman, one of the first things that I bought was a mattress topper for my mattress. For the students that are listening that live in the dorms, we are very fortunate to have very, very nice dorms at Cougar Crossing. But we all know a mattress topper can make a world of difference.
Absolutely.
And so they're relatively inexpensive. You don't have to get the most top of the line one, but I would recommend, if you are coming and you want it to make make your space feel comfortable. And even a mattress topper can help make that bed feel a little bit newer with that new top layer.
Yeah.
And so that was one thing that really helped me get a good night's rest. The other thing, which I think is extremely important, is making sure you stay hydrated. And I did that. My roommates and I bought a Brita water filter that you just put in. There's a couple different ones. You can get one that you fill up and put in the fridge, or put it on your sink spout. We got the one that we put in the fridge, and I really felt like that helped us drink more water and stay hydrated. So those are a few practical things as far as like your health and well-being, making yourself feel comfortable. But I think there's other things that you can do to make your dorm feel like home, and just decorating the space to match your style. And again, that doesn't have to be super expensive. We're fortunate that our dorms are fully furnished, and so you don't have to buy fridges and couches and beds. But the decorations that you want, that's up to you.
Yeah, and that's so fun. I think that's such a fun part of it. I just moved into a new apartment, and I feel like one of the best things has been making it my own. And I've done that with stuff that I've already had, but I've gotten to put my own spin on it. Or I have just gone and bought cheap photo frames and printed pictures of my friends and my family. And I think it's something that it's very easy to overlook, but giving yourself that sense of, this feels like my safe space. Even if it's like, I never lived in a dorm, but that would have been very important to me for it to feel like this is my room and not somewhere that someone else has lived before.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing is, we know that you can be a little crammed on space. And so a few things that were helpful to me is under bed organizers, or organizers that you can hang up on the back of your doors for your shoes or accessories or whatever that may be. And again, those can be very inexpensive. You can get the plastic pull out under the bed storage, or even like under your sink, you can get the plastic drawers that you can put some of your toiletries in. So as far as making the most of the space that you have, because we know that it can be very limited if you're in a dorm, especially at some of the bigger schools where they are smaller than our apartments. I mean, our apartments are pretty good size, so our students, I feel like, have quite a bit of space. But those are a couple of things that
I love those.
help to make the most of my space. The other thing I wanted to talk about was dining options and navigating kind of meal planning, and trying to do so our students can try to maintain a healthy lifestyle. I know that going to the store and buying lean proteins and vegetables and stocking up on those things can be really expensive, and there's a lot of cheap options. But I wanted to share some of the tips and tricks even that you and I do now to try to make healthier decisions so they can try to implement that in their everyday lives. Do you have anything that you want to share there?
If someone wants to cook you a meal, let them. That's number one. I think just looking for healthier alternatives. Yes, like protein for me. I eat a lot of yogurt. Like Greek
I
yogurt.
do too.
I think that's a huge thing. It's not very expensive. It's very filling. And so I think it's looking for those sources of protein and like healthy fats and everything that are filling to you, because also you're busy. Like sometimes I don't eat lunch or whatever it might be because I'm running around, but I'll have like a Greek yogurt, a little small thing of it. And then I also think fruits and veggies can be expensive, but not if you're only buying for one person. So not saying that you like should smuggle them and not share with your roommates, but maybe you split that grocery cost, or you look at it that way and you look for the cheaper alternatives, and then also finding grocery stores that maybe have things for a lesser expense. That's something that, yes, I was going to say, something that I do is price compare all the time and say, okay, well, I can get, a bag of cucumbers for this price here, but I can do it here for $1 cheaper. And previously, I would look at things and be like, it's just $1. But when you're thinking about finances and you're trying to save money, that dollar does make a difference. And so it's just making smart choices like that for sure.
Yeah, they start to add up. And another thing is, I think stocking your backpack with some options too. If it's a, protein bar or snack bar, a bottle of water. I think stocking your backpack with those things before you leave home and coming to classes, especially if you have a full day where you're going from class to class, that really helps to prevent you from going to a vending machine and buying a candy bar and a pop, where you have some healthier options that you brought with you, and then you're saving money on top of that as well. The other thing that I wanted to mention is we do have a couple options on campus if you need to get food and you're in class or in between classes, or you're maybe struggling and you need some groceries for some of our students that live on campus, or even if you're a commuter and you need something. So we do have our diner in the back of Cougar Corner, and so we don't have a meal plan, but you are welcome to stop in. We serve breakfast and then we have lunch meals, and they change throughout the week, and I promise they're so good. Steph is an amazing cook.
She's the best.
So I promise that's an affordable option and it's really good. The other thing is we do have a student food pantry.
Right. That's one of my favorite things on campus.
Yes, it is for me too. And it is in the back of our student center. And I'm not sure the hours on it, but typically I think it's on our website if you want to check that out.
And I think also if you came up here and needed to get into it, someone would absolutely help.
Yeah, if you go into admissions and student services and let them know, hey, I need to get into the food pantry. Can somebody help me with that? That is totally free to our students, and there is some good food in there.
And it's so cute. It's like your own little grocery store. They've done such a good job on it, and I think it's made it such a fun experience for people to be able to go in there and do like their grocery store shopping, and then not have to pay for anything, which is wonderful.
Yeah, so that's a great resource for our students, especially I feel like a lot of times I see our competitive teams going in and grabbing stuff because they have busy schedules, and they might not want to go to the grocery store when they get back in the middle of the night and grab something in between classes. So use that resource. We want our students to use the resources that we have here. So I want to talk a little bit about campus life and getting involved. And I think that this can blend for our on-campus students and our commuter students, and talk a bit about clubs and organizations and different events for our students to get involved in. We know that it can be challenging and feel like I just don't have enough time to do the extra stuff. But we really want our students to be involved and be part of the community here because we really do feel like there's a lot to gain from being in that. So you help with our student events.
I do.
So talk a little bit about that and kind of what's the goal of some of our student events that we do.
Absolutely. I think the big goal of ours is to bring students together and to build that connection. And so allowing them to have this place where they can usually get free food. So that's number one, is that we do provide free food at almost all of those, and the food differs. And so we'll do like a cookies and cocoa closer to December. We'll do nacho bar sometimes around like the football season and just different things like that. So it's never the same thing. And also we try not to feed you pizza all the time because we know that's something that we know you get a lot of pizza. But the biggest goal is to give you an area where you can meet other students and you can have this experience of connection with others. But it's also just a good break for you. College can be heavy. Life can be heavy. And so having those moments where you can just kind of come together as students and hang out and not have responsibilities on you. And we do so many fun things. I wish I had the magnet that we printed out, and they should be on all the students' fridges when they move in so you guys can see what we have offered this fall and I think maybe this spring, but just different ideas and ways for them to come together as a community and meet people, meet friends, but also get a free meal. Because we know sometimes you might be passing through on your way to class, and that's fine too, but at least grab a snack, say hi, and that way, like you were talking about earlier, you don't have to go to the vending machine.
Yeah, for sure. So I did write down some of the dates of our upcoming events that we have, and I wrote down some of our career services events that we have coming up as well. So we're really excited about expanding on those workshops and things that we host. So September 3rd, we'll have a coffee bar from 9:30 to 11. September 10th, we'll have career and coffee chats from 10 to 2. That'll be in the Student Center, correct?
Yes.
September 25th is game day. I think that's in the conference center.
I believe so.
October 9th, we'll have Resume Cafe where we can go over your resume or help you build one if you don't have one yet. We want to help you start to have that in your back pocket for when it comes time to interview for internships or jobs. That should also be in the Student Center, I think.
I believe so.
And then October 15th, we have Laugh S'more, Worry Less. I'm not sure on the location on that, but those will all be on our website where you guys can look those. And we also share them on Instagram, and then they should come to your student email as well. So look out for those events and stop by and say hi to us. You don't have to stay for a long time. We want to see our students' face. We want you guys to engage with each other and with us. So we would love to see our students at those events.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about commuter students, and I want you to share a bit more for our commuter students. Tell me a little bit about managing your commuting without losing a lot of time, and things that you did that worked for you.
Right. I think it's getting that schedule like set. And so I know that there were times that I knew like, okay, if I have a 9:30 class and I have something that needs to be done, then I need to start planning for that 3 days in advance or whatever it might be. But also leaving early and having a set, it doesn't even need to be just say, okay, my class is at 9:30. I lived about 20 minutes away. And so I knew every day I need to leave at 9. That gives me time to get in the classroom a little bit early, get kind of comfortable and not feel so overwhelmed and out of breath from running. Or which we don't have a super big campus, so it's not like you have to run places, but just being in a rush can be very disturbing to your center and to your peace. It makes you feel like nothing is going to go my way today.
Yeah, and it really affects your ability to focus once you get into the classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for me, that was a big part of it, was knowing this is the time that I have to be there. And then I sometimes had classes where I had like an in-between moment. And so finding time, like a way to utilize that time where I wasn't driving home, and I know because I wasn't going to waste that gas. And so for me, it was like, okay, well, I'm going to go sit in the library and I'm going to work on this homework. And sometimes if I didn't have anything to do, yeah, I would drive around in my car. I'd just sit in my car, whatever it might be. But a lot of the time I would spend it productively. And that was one way that I didn't lose my time, I felt like, because it can be hard when you feel like I'm always on the road. Like I'm having to come here and then I'm having to go to work and then I'm having to go home. When do I do anything? I'm just driving all the time.
Yeah.
So that was the other thing, was coming prepared and knowing I have this break today. I have this downtime today. What am I going to do about it?
Okay. And I want to just ask, I'm curious. So whenever you're commuting, do you listen to podcasts? Do you listen to music?
I listen to music. I have playlists that I flip between for sure. I love R&B music. And so all that, the other thing that brings me a lot of joy is like curating those playlists and having like funny photos and funny names. Sometimes I'll send my picture or my sister just like screenshots. I won't share the songs with her. I just want her to see like, look how funny I am. And I'll send her the name and the photo of it. And so it just depends on like the mood that I'm in, because I still commute to my job. To both of them. And so I think, I listen to a lot of music, and I'll wake up one day and I'll be like, okay, I want to listen to Drake today, or whoever it might be. And that's really fun. It kind of sets the mood for the day, I feel like, a lot of the time. I do like podcasts. I feel like I like to watch them, though, a lot of the time. And so I don't do that while driving.
Okay. I was just curious what you did on your commute. So share a little bit with our students about building a home study space that works for you, and maybe give them some tips on how they can make the most of, while they're living at home, still having a good space and being able to focus on their schoolwork.
Yeah, so I think for every person it's different, because some of you may be living at home commuting and some of you may be living on your own commuting. Living on my own, I have a desk set up that is my designated work area. So I've made it very curated. I've put like my cute little pins and my notebook and my laptop, my reading glasses, and like a desk chair that I enjoy sitting in and that I want to be at that space and learn. And then at home, when I was living at home and I was commuting to college, I had like a designated seat at the dining table, and everyone knew not to touch that seat between like the hours of this and this. And they would make jokes about, if you're looking for Sydney, she's at the dining room table studying. And so I think it's just having a set spot. That's been a big thing for me since I was 18, is knowing this is the place that I do my homework. And if you're living at home and you have distractions like that, because sometimes my little brother would want to watch TV when I was trying to get stuff done. But I felt like the second that I sat down at that seat, he was like, okay, it's time for me to go away. Sydney's trying to do something. And then also just having those conversations. Because there's times that you're working on something that maybe doesn't require that much concentration, but there's times that you really need to sit down and focus. And so just having that open line of conversation with whoever it is that you're living with of, hey, I have this really big assignment coming up and I really need to focus, and I can't do it in my room because I'll get distracted in my room, but this is where I sit and I study. So just know, like, between these hours and this hour, I'll be here studying, and I really need it to be quiet, or I need it to be something that I want to listen to, or whatever it might be. As far as making it just like a spot you want to study at, I think it is just having like your little pens and your notepad. And I always have a pair of glasses wherever, like, at both in my offices, I have a pair of glasses. At my desk at home, I have a pair of glasses because I know I want to have my blue light glasses when I look at my laptop. And that just makes it feel like, okay, this is my workspace.
Yeah.
And so just making it your own for sure. And the designated spot, I feel like, was huge for me.
Yeah, for sure. So my last question for you that's really dedicated to our commuter students. I want you to talk about staying connected to campus life while you're living off of campus, and how you did that.
I did not do a great job of it. And that's something that I preach to not preach, but I try to promote to students because I didn't do a great job of it. I truly made one friend in college, and it was my senior year of college, my last semester. And he is my best friend to this day. And so I regret the fact that I hadn't made those connections previously. And so I think one of the big things that you can do is come to those student events. And I think one of the things that you and I really try to do is look at it as, what event can we make that would have made us go? And I think that's an interesting perspective that we've been able to kind of put on it. And especially me, because I never went to anything.
Yeah,
so.
it makes it fun to think, okay, what would have 18-year-old Macey went to?
Yes, yeah. And so I think that's the thing that I hope people know, is that we want you to connect with us, and we are doing our very best to make it things that you want to connect with. And like I said, I did not do a great job of it at 18 to 22, to be honest with you. But in part, I do regret it. And so I always tell people, get involved, because there's so many people that their best friends are from college, or they have these experiences of they joined this club and they got to have this experience and they got to do these things. And I don't have those necessarily. And yeah, part of it is because I was commuting and I was working and I was doing these things. But the other part is I didn't make time to do it. And so I think it's just realizing that you do have time for what you want to make time for. And if that's something you want to make time for, just get involved, get connected. People are so kind and they want to help, and they'll help you get plugged in.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's possible. It's
Yeah,
possible to,
absolutely.
I mean, when we were talking about our student events, a lot of those, the times overlap with some of our classes or towards the end of our classes throughout the day. And so if you're a commuter, stop by in between classes or before you go home.
Right.
Because we really want to see you there.
We do.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about some feedback that some students shared with us. I sent a few current Redlands students and then even a few Redlands alum within the last few years, a few questions, because I wanted their feedback. You and I can talk about our experiences, but I wanted some feedback from students that are currently immersed in being a current college student. So the first question that I have was what's one tip that helped you make the most of living in the dorms? I'll read the first answer. One thing that helped this student was trying really hard to make friends with their roommates and the people around them. And I love this next part that they shared. One thing to keep in mind is the people you are with are far more important than the physical place that you're at.
That's awesome.
That touched me and really is so true. I moved from Iowa to Oklahoma and did not know anybody. And so quickly felt so comfortable when I was here because it wasn't the place that I was at. It was the people that I was around and the friends that I made within the first few weeks. And so I love that student said that because I do think there's a lot of truth in that statement. The next student said, make your space feel like home. They brought photos of their family and things that they're passionate about, and it really helped to make their space feel more personal and like home. I think that goes along well with the decorating that we were talking about earlier. Another big factor that she shared was getting together with friends, teammates, and roommates. She's on a competitive team. They had regular dinners together, and that really helped to create a family-like bond, and it made that transition to college feel a lot smoother. So, getting together with your friends, and like you talk about splitting the bill, you guys can get together. One thing that I did when I was a student, me and some of my friends, we would get together and we would buy those prepackaged pork loins.
Yes.
They're not very expensive. Yes. Pork is not very expensive. And actually, I'm going to give a shout out to my old friend, Maddie. She now works at the Pork Council, and so I'm promoting pork, but we would get together and cook pork loins and just eat pork loins and mac and cheese and watch TV for the evening. And it was so much fun. I loved when we did that about once a week. But you could share that cost with your friends.
And it doesn't have to be fancy.
No.
It doesn't have to be anything serious. I think that's the other thing we get intimidated by. I get intimidated by this. I feel like Carrie Bradshaw. I like stuff my shoes in my oven, but it's not, you can cook or you can warm something up. It doesn't have to be this 5-star fancy meal where there's appetizers and dessert and everything else. It's the pork chops and the mac and cheese, or if you just want to share a pizza, whatever it might be, like just creating that sense of community and not letting it be this overwhelming pressure to do it.
Yeah, for sure. So I thought that was a really great tip that she shared. Another practical tip, this was a Redlands grad actually that she graduated a couple years ago. She said get a toolbox. And I do think that that's helpful, especially whenever you're decorating. Having a hammer and some nails and just having a small toolbox will be kind of helpful. But she also wanted to share that students should get involved with clubs and build a community for yourself, which kind of is a common theme. Our last student, I believe, said, never turn down an invitation. Living on campus is a unique opportunity to meet people, create memories, and build connections that last beyond college. So there's kind of a common theme there with making the most of living in the dorms, really embracing the people that are around you and making those connections will really help to make that dorm life experience a good one.
That's awesome.
You want to go over our next question?
Yeah. So the next one we asked was, what is your best study hack? I should read these and let them, notes. The first student said, make sure you go to class. Hearing the lectures and being present will absolutely help you keep your grades in order. And as far as home studying is concerned, Quizlet is your friend. Amen to the Quizlet.
Yeah, I love Quizlet.
Love some Quizlet. I think it saved my grade several times in my life.
And the best is whenever you get on and you're searching for something and the class and that test is already uploaded. Somebody else has already made an awesome set of flashcards. It's like, praise the Lord above. This is
like God
meant
wanted
to be.
me to be here. He wanted me to Google this and land here for sure. But going to class, absolutely. I think there's things that you miss out on if you're not in class. And I know that we preach college isn't like high school and you don't have to be there every day and it's okay to miss classes. And it is. But it's so important to be consistent because there's things that, the assignment may be online, but you miss the lecture if you're not in class. And if you don't have a friend to ask for notes, or if your friend doesn't take very good notes. I mean, like there's so many different things. The second person said, do not procrastinate. I think that's one that a lot of us can relate to. Someone else said, have a group of people to study with, whether it is some of your teammates in the same class as you or reaching out to new people who are in class with to organize a time to get together. They said that they printed out study guides and went over materials and quizzed each other, and it made it more effective and enjoyable. That makes me think of like the scene in Grey's Anatomy where they're studying for their quizzes and they're all asking each other those questions. And it's hard, but you can tell they're having a good time almost because they're getting to do it with their friends. Yeah. Someone else says, do not study in your room. Find a place that is different. I loved going to a good coffee shop. And we have some great coffee shops.
We do.
Here.
Iron Tree downtown is really, really good. Even now on weekends when I want to go out and catch up on emails or just hang out there, that's a really great environment. I know when I was a student here, some of my friends went to Iron Tree. So that's a good spot here locally that you can go to. Absolutely. But yeah, I agree with that. When I was in school, going to a different environment helped me to focus a lot more.
The last person says 25 minutes of focused work followed with a 5-minute break. So that goes back to what you were talking about.
That method. I'm not going to try to say the name of it again.
I was proud of you your first time.
Yeah.
But that goes back to, allowing yourself. And I think a lot of us probably already do this just in ways we don't think about. I know for me, it's kind of like, okay, I can't get up to go walk until I finish this thing or whatever it might be. But putting a time limit on it helps it feel probably less like a punishment because a lot of the time mine is like, no, you have to do this before you can go anywhere. So that's a great idea.
Okay, my last question that we sent our students is, how do you balance your social life, studies, and other responsibilities? The first student said that balance will come easier than you think, and this might be different for different students, but they say you just have to get used to it and adjust. They would advise finding a good group of people to surround yourself with that make things that aren't always fun, like studying, still entertaining. So I think that's great advice to share. Another student said school and judging comes first. They're part of our livestock judging team. If you stay on top of your main priorities, then you'll have time afterwards to socialize with your peers and your friends. We know that having time with your friends is really important, and we promise that there will be time. If you don't procrastinate and you stay on top of your responsibilities and those main priorities, that the time for the other things will come for sure. Another student said, know what responsibilities and your main priorities are. The atmosphere of community college allows you to be constantly surrounded by friends, which is a good thing, but it's also important to take time to focus on other things like your class assignments, your competitive team responsibilities. So you have to decide what matters most to you and then structure your time around those goals. I thought that was very wise, because that is one thing that I love about being at a community college is the people that you're surrounded with. But she had a good perspective on that of you have to structure your time and sometimes take a step away from all the fun to make sure that those main priorities are getting addressed.
Right.
Another student said, stay organized, use a planner, and set realistic weekly goals so you don't become overwhelmed. And then another student said, relying on mentors and valuing their opinions can also help you navigate decisions and challenges in this season of life. I think whenever we talk about a mentor and somebody that we really value, everybody that's listening probably thinks of somebody different. And I think maintaining that relationship and taking some of the things that maybe you're battling to them, they're going to be there to support you. And so I think those are all great tips and feedback from our students on how to balance those things, because we know that can become so overwhelming. So I hope that that's encouraging to hear some of those tips and tricks from some of our students.
They've used them.
Yeah. And have a lot of these students have been very, very successful. And even asking some of your other friends, if you're feeling alone in that emotion, like, hey, how do you balance this?
Right. Yeah.
And just talking with them can really help to give you some other insight too.
Well, and even I have friends like you who are much more organized than I am. And so I remember being like asking friends when I was in college, how are you staying on top of this? Like, how are you organizing this? And sometimes your friends may not be at the same school that you're at. And that was the boat that I was in, was a lot of my friends after high school had gone on to different colleges. And I remember still reaching out to them and asking, I'm really struggling here. How can I do this? And also, I remember them celebrating my accomplishments with me. Because maybe I was struggling in a class and they gave me a tip of how they were doing it over there. And then I would tell them, hey, I made an A on that test. And they'd be more excited for me than I was for me. And so just that sense of community that these students were talking about over and over and over again is so true. And I think don't feel alone if maybe your community isn't here, but also try to build one here for you to have and rely on. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's great. So before we close for the day, I want to end with just a quick rapid fire question for you, maybe one or two.
Okay.
So the first one I have is, what's one must have for college life?
Someone you trust.
Yeah, I wrote down when I was reflecting on this question was a great support system.
Yeah.
So I think that not a physical thing to have.
Right.
I think it's so important to have someone you trust and a great support system behind you, because there's going to be days where it is challenging and you want to give up or do something else, and really falling back on those people are going to help you. And then the one last thing, what's one thing you wish you knew before coming to school?
People want you to succeed. People want you to succeed. That would definitely be the thing that I think for a long time I felt like the world was against me, just because I was 18 and dramatic. But people want you to succeed, and that's something I've learned being a student and also being on the other side of it. There's nothing I love more than when a student comes back to me and says, this is a grade I made. This is the job I got. I'm going to owe you. That just, everything that we work to do here brings it full circle. And so I think that's the big thing that I really wish I would have known.
Yeah. I wrote down, don't limit yourself on what you think you can do. And I think also keep an open mind when you're planning your future and, pursuing a career. I think some students come in, they know exactly what they want to do. Some come in and have no idea. And I think a lot of times you don't even know the opportunities that are out there. So keeping an open mind and saying yes to different opportunities when they arise is really important. And you will probably do things that you really like, and you'll probably do things that you really don't like, and that is just as valuable.
It is.
Discovering something that's like, this is not for me, then maybe discovering a new job opportunity that's like, hey, I never even knew this existed. This is something I'm thinking about pursuing now. So keep an open mind and don't limit yourself on what you think you can accomplish and what you can pursue.
That's such a good point too, because every lesson we learn is a valuable one. It may not always be a fun one, but it's always a valuable one. And I think that's really important, because it's hard to learn those lessons. It's not easy, but as long as you know it is valuable, it makes it a little bit easier to swallow, I feel like.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Well, I thought this was great. I'm really happy about this kind of back to school episode. I hope our students and our listeners find this episode helpful, our insights and even some feedback from our current students. So we want to say thank you for joining us again on the Redlands Rundown, and we're excited to see you next time.
bye, guys.